Yes, hello everybody. Welcome once again to another edition of Full Course Yellow. If you've been watching straight out of Channel 31 and our interview tonight with Macaulay Jones, hope you enjoyed that. Really nice guy, as I said on the program a little bit later on, a little bit before, and on Channel 31. Really nice young fella, and really good to catch up with him. And I'll tell you about our guest next week a little bit later on as well. Another young driver going places in a hurry. As you can see, most of the regulars are in attendance for tonight. We've got Stuart Fairweather, we've got Chris Ritchie, Richard Outram, Peter Johnson, and of course Craig Gladigo. Doc is with us in the house again, so we'll get on with what's happening. As I said on the program, it was a really hard show to do this week because there really wasn't a lot of news around. Certainly, very little at the time. That's why we covered liveries. And we don't like it when we have to cover liveries. You can tell that there's a slow news day when people like ourselves and Auto Action and Speed Cafe and the rest are covering liveries. You know that it's been a particularly slow news day.
Did you cover the new one, the new wrap that they're trying out coming up? Did you talk about that?
Which one? There's a few of them. We covered the boost ones.
No, the one that the
Blanchard one.
Yeah, the Blanchard one. I saw a tidbit of it today. Yeah, the Blanchard. They're going to do a new concept for night racing that was going to be designed for.
Yeah, that. I mean, it's quite old actually. They used to have night racing out at Oran Park many years ago, and there were quite a few cars that had that sort of reflective wrap on. Well, though it was paint back in those days and stickers, and all the rest of it. I used to have that myself.
No,
stuff.
Don't you sweat decals?
Decals.
If they hear you say stickers, oh, geez, those sign riders will be absolutely turning in their grave.
Yes, well, anyway, so that's it. They only put out the video release on that today, but yeah, so they're heading off. Supercars heading off to Sydney Motorsport Park.
Cheers to the past.
Very soon. Coming up, we've got once again a few of the regulars in the house. Mad Cow Mark is here again. G'day all. G'day to Mark and also Box. So if you're watching, I mean, drop us a comment on the YouTube chat or on the Facebook page. If you've got any questions, you got to drive this show because quite frankly, it's been a tough couple of days, quite frankly, and. So I don't have anything prepared at all, even less prepared than usual, because I've had other things far more important than motorsport on my mind. So anyway, so what are we talking? The US Grand Prix is back in action this weekend, and we're going to be talking about bumps. Bumps is going to be the word of the day. Pete, have they started whinging about
Doc's
the bumps
head.
yet?
The speed bumps.
Pierre Gasly has. But he sort of has and he sort of hasn't. He sort of said they'll have to set the car up. It'll be a compromise with the setup because of the bumps at the track.
They're terrible things.
Is Gasly got the only one that's going to get bumps, and the other ones don't have to set their car up for bumps as well too? I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, he's the only one that said anything.
So is he racing on a different circuit to the other people? That's all.
Yeah, I think Alonso's had some words. I think Alonso's had some words about it as well. They, as we said last week, they Circuit of the Americas, did have have had a look at it and done a bit of work that they could do to try and get the big bumps out. But I mean, the MotoGP guys complained a lot about the bumps,
yes,
but I mean they've only got a couple. They've only got two wheels, so I can imagine they'd be a bit more susceptible to the bumps, whatever.
Now,
bumps
when you're saying they've done the work to
got a big iron out,
is this like the officials at Imola saying they'd done the work to smooth out the bumps in Tamarello before Senna?
Well, who knows? I mean,
these important questions we ask. Maybe we should get an FIA official on, and we'll have a chat to them and ask him what their answers will be.
Do they speak English yet?
What was that, Chris?
Do they speak English yet?
Oh, Jesus. That's the cheapest one for the night so far.
That's going to be the
Harry
next
and
thing.
Twist.
As I was out for.
Well, if you want the most expensive one for the night, that would be a reference to Italian judicial services and how much it costs to get away.
So just before we go any further, I just want to let everyone know. Last week, Brett was saying that Chris is being unwell lately. He's fine now. He's letting the comments. He's fine. He's not sick at all. He's firing on all guns.
Speaking of things that are not fine, I just want to pass this through to Doc because he looks like he needs it.
Oh, Brett, can you put up our lower thirds, please?
If we
Have you got our lower thirds there?
Yes,
I have it prepared. There you go, Stuart. I've already put. Here's one I prepared earlier. Beers and buds cuts around all night tonight. I won't be going to the hairdressers at. Look at you though. You've got Flash Gordon. You got the wings going out down the side there as well too. Look at that. Yeah. Is that wind tunnel aerodynamics? Yeah, we all need a haircut.
No, it's the new Batmobile hairstyle.
I'm going the Yahoo Serious. They're going to grow it right out of the head here and then paint it orange. Anyway.
There you go. Paul Vanderacker saying, any of the team get to any of the Winton 24-hour relays? Richard, did you ever get to any of those? I certainly didn't.
No, I didn't. I didn't think too many of them ran. I was also preparing for hopefully getting to Bathurst. And, I couldn't risk sort of wearing the car out when I'd already paid a couple of grand to run Bathurst.
Speaking of Bathurst, the Challenge Bathurst is going ahead, and they're sort of carbon neutral. Apparently, they've come to some agreement with somebody. Money's changed hands somewhere, and apparently they're going to plant lots of trees, and that's going to sort of compensate for all the cars going round and round in circles over the 4 days.
Is that like net 50 carbon neutral 2050?
Yeah.
Well, no, this is carbon neutral 2021. So there you go. So that's all you need. All you need to do is just plant a few trees, and she'll be right. In Pit Lane is carbon neutral as well, because we've planted lots of trees. None of them live at least in my case.
Your backyard's doing fine. As long as we can pinch the limes across the fence, you're doing fine.
They cut it back again. It had just started growing again. I walked out yesterday, and there was the next door neighbours had all these lovely limes coming over there. They've come and they've cut the tree back right down again. So
it's going to cut the Corona sales in halves at the liquor departments now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Michael Hassel saying went to his first Winton 24 hours as an official man. Yeah, it was a long, long time ago that they had the 24 hours. I don't think they'd be able to do it.
What was
today,
if you're paying attention? If you're paying attention, Michael, if you're still with us, MH, Mr. Hustle, what was the attrition rate? Just out of curiosity, and many years ago, what sort of year was it? 1982 or not? Whatever it was, and how many made the 24 hours out? That'd be a great stat to find out.
What year did they take place? I remember it happening, but it was a long time ago. So
punch us up on that as well, though, too. Anyway, getting back to F1, Daniel's been throwing himself to the wolves of the press in the last week. I think I've seen. I think is there 20,000 different cowboy hats you can wear that are available to buy or being given over in America. I've seen him wear about that many hats, and he's hitting the presses and he's doing photo shoots and doing promo shots and you name it. Daniel's been. I don't know if it's just me, but he's all over the shop this week.
Yeah, he absolutely loves America. He loves Texas, and he particularly going to love this one because this is where he gets to the payoff for his win at Monza. He's getting to drive Dale Earnhardt's car because he grew up as a huge Dale Earnhardt fan, a big NASCAR fan. Hence the number 3 on his car. That's the reason he carries the number 3 on his Formula One car, because that, of course, was the famous number for Dale Earnhardt. So this the opportunity to actually race or to actually run one of Dale Earnhardt's cars. Unfortunately, not on an oval. It would have been great if he could have done it on an oval, but he's going to do some demonstration laps at Circuit of the Americas behind the wheel of the ex Dale Earnhardt car, the yellow and blue Wrangler car. There, Paul saying that 24 hours, about 5 late 80s to early 90s. Yeah, that'd be right. I didn't know there were that many of them. I knew there were a couple, but I didn't know there'd been 5 of them. But
Okay.
yeah, a relay event, a bit like the 6, the Sandowns, the Phillip Islands 6 hour and the 4 hour at Sandown.
Yeah, relay team. Well, if they lost a car at Knackers, they could. If they got 4 into one team, that they could have a bit more sleep. The shifts would have been a bit longer, and you could have a decent snooze instead of actually doing, say, 3 or 4 hours and having to try and get a kit.
Yeah, that's it. Mark pointing out, well, Christian Mansell, young Australian driver, came 3rd in the GBF3 Championship, and a couple of Australians did quite well in that. The interesting thing is, so where Mansell goes now will be interesting, but he's got a bit of backing behind him, and I believe that there might be something coming up, an announcement fairly soon about what he's up to next year. This is something Andrew's reporting that, and Doc sort of raised this with us before the show started. The Herald Sun reporting Sydney is planning to bid for the Formula One race in 2026. So
the background information on that is, and I'm going to get it all political for about 15 seconds. Christina Keneally had a crack at it back in 2010 and was unsuccessful, even though as loud as she can be. They gave it a rest for 5 years. Mike Baird, this is obviously before Gladys, just before Gladys took over. Mike Baird had another wacky-do. Sorry, Stuart, your screen just froze a bit then. Mike Baird had another got the whip out again as well at 2015 and was unsuccessful. And all these words up in Sydney. Because remember, last time I checked, I think it was about 180 million. So it'd be 200 million plus to put this show on that the government usually pays for. And then, of course, people say, oh, why is this ridiculously amount of money the government's paying for? The money that the show brings and the economy, it makes more than double that. Unfortunately, it's like a free taxpayer fund, and it gets put back in by the whole event itself over the week or two that everyone's here. So it's money well spent because it comes back twofold. So, Baird, Keneally. Now Dom Perrottet, the new man up there in Sydney, wants to run the same concept of the racetrack out the back over the Harbour Bridge, just over 5K, similar to an Albert Park length, and run a Monaco type style race there beside the harbour and over the bridge. But they'd have to. This is a disappointing part. Oh, wouldn't it be fantastic to put 20 Formula One cars across the bridge or whatever it may be down the track if they got it in 5 years, whatever the field is? That we were just talking about Coda and Formula One and obviously MotoGP over there in America at the Circuit of Americas at Austin. That's bumpy there, and Pierre Gasly's complaining the Harbour Bridge has got mountains on it compared, so they can't run a Formula One car at top speed across the bridge anyway unless they would completely redo it, and they'd have to put chicanes all the way across the bridge, which would, I reckon, take away some of the effect. There you go. I'll throw it out there. There's the background info.
It's not going to happen. I mean, it was certainly the dream. It was certainly the dream of Bernie Eccleston. Bernie said that his ultimate dreamer for Formula One in Australia was to have that shot of Formula One cars pouring over the Sydney Harbour Bridge with the Opera House in the background. I mean, he felt that would be that was the money shot, and that's the one that he was very, very keen, and he hoped that when they granted the Grand Prix to Adelaide, they were hoping that would be a temporary thing, and that Sydney would put up their hand and say, okay, we'll have it. This has been a real success, and we'll have it now. And it never happened. There was, all the plans came, but I mean, just imagine, the chaos if you had to shut down the Sydney Harbour Bridge for the amount of time you needed to prepare it.
They've got that organised. They've already got that organised too. They've got a plan for that. You know how they're going to shut the bridge down? They're going to make it a public holiday on the Friday too. That solves all the problems.
Yeah, they'll do it. Yeah, they'll knock that over in 24 hours.
Yeah, didn't you realise that they just get the public holiday solves everything?
Anyway, they could have a bike ride across the bridge again.
Yeah, of course, Mark Webber did the pass across the Harbour Bridge when he was with Red Bull, but I mean it was basically like the super slow speed, and they carried on like it
Red
is
Bull
had to
or
be done at
Williams?
some ridiculous hour of the morning, and had to be accompanied by police and all the rest of it. It won't happen. I mean, it's not, if the only way they could possibly get it would be as if they further upgraded Sydney Motorsport Park, and the fact is there's no point doing that because they won't get a crowd. They can't get a crowd out there to begin with. I mean, even for the supercars coming up, I mean, I think they're limited, but they struggle to get anybody out there because it's a bugger of a track to get to. It's a pain in the ass to come home again.
The original plan from New South Wales in 2010 with Christina Keneally on board as a sponsor of it wasn't even for the Sydney Harbour Bridge. They intended to have it at Homebush anyway, so it wasn't actually going to be included. The bridge wasn't even going to be on the original one that the concept they came up with. So it wasn't until further down the track with the Mike Baird one that they were going to have the Eccleston money shot, I suppose, if he's still capable of having one.
Yeah, as Paul's saying, why does the Sydney Grand Prix proposal remind me of the Geelong 500? I don't know if anybody... I think the Geelong 500 was probably a more realistic proposition than the damn Sydney for the Grand Prix at Sydney. But anyway, I think that would be very popular. I mean, we know how popular the sprints are down there. It would be fantastic to have a big race down at Geelong. It would be a bit like Newcastle, I suppose, and we know what is done. Now, that's the interesting thing is, sometime tomorrow, they're going to announce the date for the Adelaide 500. Yeah. Now, I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. There is no Adelaide 500.
Grand sale.
Yeah,
I sold the grandstands.
So just give you a little bit of background information for our podcast listeners that can't see it, so they're going to be listening to this step down the track, and also for an update of information. I spotted, for some reason it came up with my feed with different stuff. I look at clearing sales and salvage and massive industrial equipment stuff, and this South Australian company which has come completely under fire, and I do feel for them because all they're doing is someone has to do it. The government's tendered it out. They give it to a company, and they're going to sell it's basically all the equipment. And I think Brett or Stuart mentioned, one of you mentioned it was the fifth sale they've had. So they're selling it all in stages. And this particular one during the week was one of the big ones because it was all the grandstands. So it wasn't the plastic chairs. It was all the grandstand seating that they're all passing off. And actually, a little bird actually mentioned something else I didn't tell the guys about. Lindsay, a guy by the name Lindsay Fox. I don't know if you've heard of him. Happens to own a circuit or two around the place, and someone said, "Oh, wouldn't that be helpful? 100k southeast of Melbourne out there as a spare or popped up somewhere around the circuit." So
they probably don't need. I mean, the point is, I mean, as far as Phillip Island's concerned, the only time that they would need it at all, they might need. They would certainly they can certainly use those grandstands for the Grand Prix. They might be able to use one or two for the World Superbikes. Outside of that, there's absolutely no need to have grandstands at Phillip Island at all. It's a big area. They just don't get those sorts of crowds. The supercars aren't even there running regularly there, and even when they did, pretty much nobody turned up anyway. So what's the point of going out and paying all that money for grandstands when you can get the ones that they're using? Because the Grand Prix Corporation run the MotoGP, so they just use the ones from Albert Park.
Let's be brutally honest here. All of the fences, all of the concrete, all of that sort of stuff, where it went to was scrap. It was more valuable in the metal for the recycling than what it was for anything else. The shock was the entire pit building was for sale as well. So whoever's going to clear that out.
And the other thing as well too,
building that comes in and out for the events.
Just before we go back to the main trigger happy shot, we all mentioned, I happen to have a very good friend of mine, and I know he gets free tickets out of this as well, because as you do, it's not what you know when you know. What they need excess to what they already have down there, and for a particular crowd. So if they're going to get 55,000 for a Casey Stoner MotoGP in October, which I went to quite regularly, they need a few extra grandstands. They need infrastructure around it they just hire off Boral for the weekend, and Boral's got all the equipment there at hand anytime, any day of the week. So, because my friend who works highly up in Boral, he would go down there and he'd just put his hand on the side of the scaffold and go, "Yeah, that's tight. Thanks for bringing me along. I'm just going to watch the bikes for the rest of the weekend." So that was he was the quality control officer. He made himself as well too. So, hi Trev, and we'll hopefully go riding again soon. But Adelaide 500, Brett. When are we going to South Australia other than the Bend?
Yeah, well, this is the thing. I mean, it's clearly a political stunt, but the interesting thing is it's a political stunt backed apparently by supercars, because it's the opposition leader over there. Because of course the Labor Party over there have said that if they get elected at the election, which I believe is happening next year, they're saying that they've signed a memorandum of understanding. Was that Chris?
They're saying that the Labor Party over there is saying it'll be if we get elected, that'll be a referendum saying that the Adelaide 500 is going ahead.
Yeah, so they're going to announce a date in consultation with the with supercars. They're going to announce a potential date for an Adelaide 500 in 2023 or 2024. Basically, just say that like if we are elected at the next election, we have a date, and we will, regardless of what happens, we will be bringing the supercars back to the streets of Adelaide. So
that kind of means the sale is not about the finances. It's not about getting rid of stuff that's surplus. It's about making sure that they're scorched earth policy.
So that
if Labor get in, Labor has to pay out more to put on the event than they would have if they were doing it this year without.
And then Mr. Murdoch can run sort of like,
because that means that if Liberal is not in power, they can then go to the press and say, "Look at all the money that Labor is wasting."
And not just the amount of money, that sort of equipment or anything at all takes a considerable amount of time and planning to manufacture or get hold of or secure for an event as well too. And it's not going to, it might hamper the prospect of it running at its potential success if they haven't got the things behind it. So, people go, "Oh, I went along there and there was no matting, all the grass was torn up and it was mud and I should have worn my gumboots and there was no food trucks around this particular area," and so it can a well-run, well-tuned events that we have year in, year out, and when we get back to them again soon now after midnight tonight and the next couple of weeks, the ones that are been revered for years that have been tried and tested will have the plans still in place, how they've run before, and will successfully do it again. If you're trying to, as Stuart's saying, you're trying to start one from scratch at that height.
As Paul's saying, many of the Albert Park concrete walls were ex-Adelaide Grand Prix, and that they made new ones for the Adelaide 500. Also, if you go out to Calder Park, the concrete walls on the drag strip there, if you go down the bottom, you'll see the old Qantas signs, the faded paint there from there, because Calder Park and Peter, who runs the Calder Park Drag Racing Promotions, bought a lot of those concrete walls as well, and they were installed at Calder Park to bring that up to spec for the drag strip there. Speaking of which, just quickly announced today the legal proceedings. The big battle has started. The IHRA have commenced legal proceedings in Sydney against Sydney Dragway, calling for an injunction for a stay of the swap over to the contract for Andra, and it's such a shame. I understand why they're doing it. I mean, it is, as they say, it's business, but at the same time, it's so frustrating. I mean, if you're a drag racing fan, to see sort of the way that this sport somehow manages to try and tear itself to pieces at every opportunity. It's so frustrating. I mean, as far as the fans are concerned, as far as 99% of the competitors are concerned, all everybody wants to do is go racing, and yet there's all these various wars between the different factions and different groups running one thing and another group running another, and so I can understand why they're doing it, because they, as far as they were concerned, they had a valid contract for the next few years, and then suddenly they found they haven't. So that will be that will be interesting. But either way, it's probably not going to end well for somebody, and it probably doesn't end well for the sport of drag racing. But at a time when we were keeping our fingers crossed and hoping that things would get return to normal, and we'd be able to see the top fuelers in action again, and a genuine national series. And
which party got Dennis
the two groups
Denuto
that suffer the most are the fans and the competitors, because you can't go racing without sanctioning, because sanctioning is insurance.
Absolutely, Stuart. And I just wonder which party's got Dennis Denuto from the castle on their side and can say it's a vibe. Anyway.
Yes. So Stuart has dropped out all of a sudden. But Paul's saying Bob Jane purchased the original Adelaide Pit complex. It sat rusting down next to Tommy Easton Drive.
Someone's got
past turn.
Hello. Someone got a phone call.
So he'll pop back. He'll pop back in. We can hear him pop back in now. Paul. It all sat rusting down next to Tommy Easton. Right? There's so much out at Calder that has just sat there and rusting. There was so much from Warwick Farm. If you go, I don't know what it's like now, but if you went round the back of the track, behind where the old Glowweave corner was round there, you can see bits of the old bridge from and bits of the old Warwick Farm circuit, the famous Warwick Farm circuit from the 1960s and early 70s. That was Bob bought that as well, and the bridge that goes over when you drive under when you go into Calder Park. Apparently, that was the original Dunlop Bridge for the from Warwick Farm, I believe. So
there's a lot of history down there.
There's a lot of there's old chassis, there's old NASCAR chassis and bodies and Oscars. There's all manner of things, and probably boxes and boxes and cartons of Sri Lankan beer as well. That was another thing he tried to bring in.
Sounds definitely like a great graveyard.
I believe there's lots and lots of interesting stuff now. This is rumor only, buried under the Thunderdome. Now, that's only what the rumors tell me.
That's been going. That's the rumors around for decades.
I think sure I told you one or two stories.
Every time it rains, it all oozes out through the turn. Or the
how about Brett when we went down to the very back and there's that pond right at the back of Glowweave in the early days of the Thunderdome? It was bubbling.
We walked around the back there. We looked there. We said, "What's that?" And it was like going to the hot springs in New Zealand. It was like
you two should be ashamed of yourselves and not letting us other people, letting us all know and the general public that someone
Christmas cake.
They've got acid down there, and you didn't tell us all about it. I swear that's very rude.
It was like the nuclear
western
pond
suburbs.
in
It's a different
Springfield
kind of
with
acid.
the Simpsons, with the three-eyed fish.
The three-eyed fish running around there. Yeah,
well, we want some nuclear-powered subs soon. All we just do is we can run them on that instead of diesel.
Bury them under the Thunderdome as well.
It's interesting. I don't know whether you saw it or whether you heard it or not, but if you go to the ABC website, Raph Epstein on his drive program yesterday actually did a special memories of Calder Park, and there were lots of people.
Wow.
Lots of people rang in and talked about their time at Calder Park. Not just the racing, but also things like the Guns N' Roses concert, the Rock Arena concert with Fleetwood Mac. So that was the quarter horses. If you remember, very briefly, they had the quarter horse. The quarter horse racing there, a dirt track running down beside the drag strip for quarter horses, and I think
it'll tell you all about that.
Yeah, I think John Farnham had a bit of a go in that too, because he was into the training and the running of the quarter horses. So I think he was out there with Jill, with his wife, doing stuff out there. So the quarter horses ran for a while. It was one of the many plans at Calder Park, which never absolutely never went to true fruition. It was one of these things that popped into Bob's head and sort of just as quickly popped out again.
Just on that subject, while we're talking northwestern suburbs, a quick update because Stuart was interested in this. A couple of weeks ago, I happened to see a grab of the police chopper that was located out at Micklin Way, and it was the first original big pole police chopper they used back in the 70s. Well, an update for it made the news again in the last week. They have moved it to an undisclosed location, so it got picked up and put onto the back of a semi. and you can probably find out where it's going to, and it's going to be fully restored. So it's already in its new home and up for restoration. So they're going to get it up, probably even in police colours down the track. Down. So yeah, some good news for down the track.
That'll be some serious bickies for a helicopter.
Yeah, it's probably like an old 70s. I'm guessing it's probably like an old 70s Bell or something like that. That's all they probably really used. It didn't have any bells and whistles on it like all the new ones do. It's probably just a standard chopper.
Dauphine Model J by Eurocopter.
Yep.
Trouble is
with that whistle.
Airbus.
Helicopters suffer from terrible metal fatigue.
Yeah, I mean, there's an awful lot of vibration.
Price wise, you could probably get a classic semi for even more dollars than you could get a classic helicopter.
Yeah.
Don't retain their value.
Yeah. Has anyone seen the Liberator they're building down at Werribee?
Yes.
I've seen it.
Incredible.
Seen it. Yeah. Filmed inside it.
I gave them their only working turbocharger for their.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
What were you doing with a big back or a big blower?
That's a story in itself, actually.
We've got time.
Well,
on the Excel,
there was a brilliant. Yeah, they're great. There was a.
Blow the doors off it.
There was a guy living a couple of doors up called Pat Ratliff, and he was this brilliant motor engineer. He used to build Merlin engines and Speedway motors, and including the Maserati motors that ran at the first Grand Prix at Albert Park. And he knew everyone. I'd sit there having coffee with him. People from all around the world would call him, including McGlashan building his land speed record car. Anyway, someone delivered him this turbocharger to be restored. And one day he said, "Oh, do you know what that is?" And I go, "Bloody hell, that's either a Lightning or a Liberator." And he goes, "Yep." Anyway, time went on and he passed away, and his son said, nothing I can do with it, needs rebuilding. So he gave it to me, and I looked at it for a year or two, and I went, well, I can't rebuild it. Someone might need it. So I ran
probably
around
just need new bearings, Richard.
Well, it had. Yeah, if you knew where to get them, I'll put them in.
I had big balls, did it?
Little ones, actually.
Okay.
Lots of them.
Bearing wholesalers, you can order anything.
Yeah, I'm sure you can. Anyway, cut a long story short, someone put me onto the Liberator they were building down there. I took it down to them. They didn't have a whole one, and they were able to use that as a template for all the other ones. And I assume by now they must have at least one or two motors running. And good luck to them. Hope they have a lot of fun.
I don't think you'll find they'll ever get the engines running there, Richard. The plane is being built as a museum display. It'll never fly. It will never fly. That's correct.
It'll never fly.
Yeah,
but
they can't even get it outside of the building. The building itself is too small to get the thing outside of.
But clearly,
they said they'd have to take the wings off again.
They are got the engine, because Paul is saying that apparently they do an engine start at the Point Cook RAAF Museum once a
well, the RAAF Museum at Point Cook is a long way away from where the Liberator is being built. The Liberator is
it doesn't take much to put it on the back of the
west
truck
side of Werribee.
Yeah.
The engine start is an engine on a stand.
Yeah, it's on a stand, but they don't take all that much long, for guys who know what they're doing. Bung it on a wing and fire it up. I mean, that's oversimplification of sure, but
we've covered planes and automobiles. We just got to get onto trains now. So
well, trains. Hang on a second, trains.
Yeah, I can do a lot of it. Trains. Don't you bring up about that?
There is local news about trains.
Don't you bring up about that person up north? The guy got derailed. Oh, good. That's all right.
Nope. But trains. There is a plan in place for a company at the moment that's running trains in Australia to swap over from diesel fuel to ammonia-based fuel. The whole point being better emissions, no carbon footprint, all of that sort of stuff. But for those of you who may know a little bit about chemistry, when you put diesel and ammonia together, you get things that go bang or boom
Really?
not so much burn. So the engine will actually be a series of explosions going on rather than a series of compressed fuel.
Oh,
Yeah.
goody.
It's got interesting potential, but also if you do some studies, there are, or like look through for some studies, there's some research that's been done into converting ICE engines, internal combustion engines, for those green viewers who might be watching, probably not, but running spark ignition and compression ignition engines on ammonia instead of diesel.
Yeah, good luck with that. I wouldn't be too
There's your
keen on that, to
trains.
be honest with you.
Oh,
but
no.
anyway,
I follow the trains quite attentively, and I always have. I grew up next to a train line, and if this is an unfortunate incident, but it's going to be reincarnated in a I suppose in a great tribute to it. The K183 was a steam train they used to run around Victoria, and it had an accident back in 2002 up at Benalla, where unfortunately it was a railway crossing at hit a vehicle, and there was an unfortunate loss in the cabin and also on the track. So they've had it stored out there at Steam Rail out there at out the docks out there at the back of at Melbourne there. What's it called? Newport docks. And they've assessed it recently in the last couple of years, took all the bits that were bent and metal and off it and put it back together. And I think they did in the last 2 weeks, they've done 2 test runs with the reincarnated K183, the tributed, and they've run it up to Ballarat and around the traps on a line with some carriages on. So that's fantastic to see. And obviously they'll put a plate on it for the driver and the coal firer who unfortunately lost their lives. But yeah, it'll be great to see the R707 operations, 763, all the R classes there. Thank you, Stuart. There's K183 probably back in its heyday because they've taken obviously the cabin and the coal train behind it as well too. So for that. And when I was at Malden recently last year, when we did have lockdown, I ducked up to not to Melbourne. I went down to Healesville, and they have a preservation society as well. So Seymour has a preservation society. And everyone's got they've got a J class there up in Seymour. It's been lent out at the moment. Over there in Healesville, they've got a couple of things, but yeah, the steam trains, they're just a power under their own. If you haven't seen one in real life, get down to Southern Cross Station or anywhere in Victoria and catch up with them. They are great fun. Puff and Billy is great, but it's not the real thing. Thanks, Snackers. Open day down at Newport Workshops, Labor Day weekend next year in March. So that'll be, as you said, Snackers. It's just you can't get enough of it. You just want more.
Which unfortunately, as we learned 2 weeks ago on the show, will also be is also the planned date for next year's historic Phillip Island Classic. That will be so it won't be. They're moving the Grand Prix, of course, and the Phillip Island Historic Classic is not moving with it. It's going to basically stay at its traditional time before the Labor Day weekend. So the plan is at the moment that will be, and that will upset a few people. It might have some effect, not next year because the internationals aren't going to be able to come anyway, but I mean that was part of the attraction for a lot of people, was being able to come out here to bring their cars out to run at Phillip Island in the Classic, and then take those cars and do laps at Albert Park, and then also to watch the Grand Prix as well. So if you can sort of bring those things together, it was a lot easier of a trip for people. So. But anyway, so it was good to hear that the Victorian Historic Racing Register are still working on the Phillip Island Historic Classic for next year. The Sandown Historic race coming up in a couple of weeks' time is very much still on. Still good fields. There at this stage, still no spectators. They're still talking with the government. Very hard to sort of find out exactly what the situation is. I believe that there's some talk that they may be able to have spectators, but as we said last week, the problem is going to be that they're going to have to put in so much work and so much of so many extra people on in order to get people through and check all the vaccination things and the QR codes and all the rest of it. I think at this stage they're probably saying, look, it's probably just as easy.
Well,
to not to have spectators there, even if they're allowed.
planes, trains, and automobiles. We'll just switch to racing because it is the spring carnival, and I'm not going to go bang on about horses for even 2 minutes.
Good.
But obviously, with the Derby Day coming up on Saturday, if you probably heard, this is about numbers anyway. They've got a cap of all the events for 10,000 people, and I heard the figures a couple of days ago for the 10,000 spectators that they're going to have. There's 500 tickets available to the government because 9,500 to the public. 9,500 of those tickets go to the VRC members. Then they go to the corporate sponsors, and they go to the officials, and blah blah blah. So by the time you take away all the numbers that need to be there of the 10,000 cap limit, there's 500 tickets to the general public. So if one of these a motor event or anything at all is forced to a capped number, by the time you take away people that need to run the event or the people participating in the event, there's not much room left anyway sometimes.
I think that's one of the problems that they're having. They're still asking the government for special dispensation to get more. I believe that the Sandown figure is capped at around 1,000 people total, and that's everybody, officials, competitors, pit crew, media, everybody. And I believe that they have. I believe that they have been negotiating with the government to allow special dispensation to have more than that number in, because in order to get everybody in who needs to get in to run the meeting, they're very confident that that's going to be allowed. That they will at least be able to get more enough people in to sort of so that people like ourselves can get in. Speaking of which, when we do get in, we haven't sort of figured it out yet, but we're going to try and do some sort of live coverage from there. It won't be sort of we're not covering the whole meeting because that's expensive and impractical at the moment. Well, it's impractical without someone paying for it. But in terms of doing something, we are working on doing a couple of things on that weekend. So stay tuned, and we'll let you know what we're doing out there with the historics at Sandown coming up.
I did see the numbers that you were just saying about the island next year, Brett. I think they're almost nudging 200 entries already, and that's before even it's still this year. So that'd be it's promising to probably to fulfil the categories for next year.
Interesting. We see there at the moment the supercar takeover group. Apparently, the bid is now valued at $100 million, and of that $100 million, according to an article by Mark Fogarty in Autosport magazine, actually, 25 million of that has come from a fundraising effort amongst private investors. So if you wanted to be a part of owning Supercars Australia. Yes, I think you've missed out now, but apparently they did raise $25 million towards that by selling shares. So obviously somebody thinks it's worth money, and they think it's worth $100 million. I mean, yeah, good luck with that. But yeah.
It's a bit like come in, ladies and gentlemen. The P is under one of these three nuts.
Yeah, I think so. The interesting thing is, I can't go into too many details, but be watching next week's edition of In Pit Lane, because I actually did do the interview for next week's show. We had Macaulay Jones on this week. Next week on the program we have young Tom Sargent, and Tom announced earlier this week that he was going to be running in the Michelin Sprint Cup for the Porsches next year, stepping out of Formula Ford. Currently, he won the truncated Victorian Formula Ford Championship, is currently very much in contention for the New South Wales Championship, which will run a couple of rounds at Eastern Creek at Sydney Motorsport Park in the next few weeks. But it was interesting to see, he was saying that his focus for as long as he can remember, his focus was supercars. I hope that we're going supercars. That's what and now he's sort of going, I'm not so sure. I'm looking at GT3. I'm looking at the Porsche pyramid and the opportunities that are opening up overseas, and these amazing cars. And so yeah, perhaps yes. And as he said, for my generation, he said that whole sort of Ford versus Holden thing. As he said, he said from his family point of view, he's very much a Ford guy. But he said it was interesting. A very, very smart young fellow. I mean, watch the show. As I said, same with Macaulay Jones. It's been so good to talk to some of these young guys, because if you remember, I mean, both Stuart and Richard would definitely remember the days when we would get some of the biggest people who are now some of the biggest names in Australian motorsport came in and did some of their first television appearances on In Pit Lane in our old studio, both at RMI TV and even before that in South Melbourne with Optus Vision. And they'd come in and they'd be incredibly nervous and I don't know what to say and I don't know what to laud or I'm really I don't Now the kids, it's just second nature to them. They jump in front of a camera. They're articulate. They're confident. Really impressive. A couple of really impressive young guys. Macaulay's sort of 27, but young Tom is only sort of 19. And be watching that next week. He was really impressive. Impressed me a lot.
They still get a bit nervous in the studio, though, Brett. we've seen it, but they hide it very well. Just going back to what you're saying about the sale of supercars, because we briefly touched on it a few weeks ago. The word I heard was it was like $30 or $40 million drop, and I think what they sell it for 160 a few years ago. So 160, it's dropped down to 100. Is it now the difference?
Yeah, well, I mean, the original figure that I heard they were talking about was $75 million, and now they've added another $25 million to get it up to the 100. So I think I think Archer Capital were probably holding out for that three figures. And
do you reckon that's Christian Porter's silent benefactor?
Well, who knows?
Disclosing undisclosed amount. I'll just throw in an extra 25 mil.
It came from somewhere, but yeah, it's interesting. It'd be interesting to see who's behind that, and who's got those. But there's a lot of players. I mean, it's. I'd hate to be going to some of those board meetings. There's so many different players involved there. You've got you got Craig Kelly, the former Collingwood champion, and his group, and you've got Mark Scaife in there. You've got Barry Rogers and the people from ARG. There's a whole bunch of people sort of competing with each other. And speaking of the right hand not knowing what the left hand is doing, the Bathurst 12-hour that was announced at just before the Indianapolis 8-hour from SRO, when Stefan Rattel got up there and said, here is the date for the Bathurst 12-hour, and it will unfortunately be the same date as the Sebring 12 hours. The fact is, they asked him, and he said, we had to pick that date because that's what Supercars requested. Supercars are saying, we know nothing about this.
No.
We have no idea. The first we heard about it was when Stefan stood on stage and said, this is the date. And
complete denial.
Yeah, we know nothing about this, so
plausible denial.
I think you'll find that it won't be on the same weekend as it'll probably be closer to the traditional date, sometime either end of February, first weekend of March or something like that. I suppose they've got to keep it away. I suppose they've got to keep it away from the opening round of the supercars at Newcastle. I think that's one of the problems that they do have, and this is the conflict of interest that now exists between the fact that they're running both the 12-hour and the supercars as well. It was always inevitable that this was going to happen, that at some stage the supercar calendar was going to merge in and get in the road of the 12-hour race, and I think that's the problem. Unfortunately, that's the problem.
Well, remember I said to you, I said that to you 15 months ago, Brett, when we were going towards the end of last year when things were going to open again. I said everything was going to trip each other up on the whole lot. So, like you said, every single negotiation, every single contract, every single meeting, whether it be by Skype online or face-to-face over the boardroom table, there's going to be fire and brimstone everywhere while everyone goes, no, I want this event here, or no, we're going to be doing it this way. So probably sometimes it's just wait and see until you get a final announcement on something that's in concrete that we're going to be seeing on a certain date.
The interesting thing is that the manufacturers are the ones who are jumping up and down. Audi and Ferrari and those sort of people, and Porsche are all apparently put up their hand and said, no, you cannot run that the same weekend as Sebring, because Bathurst is now in its own right. The 12-hour is a very important race in its own right, and we want to be there, and we want our top drivers to be there. So that's really good news. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
I just hope supercars don't stuff this up. I mean, I really. I thought from the beginning that this thing, and everyone said, no, it'll be fine. They'll look after it. They're not gonna kill the goose that laid the golden egg. And guess what? They're sharpening the knife.
Well, the 2 points you just said you can derive from is one, and you just touched on that is how highly regarded this particular race here in Australia is, and how at the top of the pile. It's such a important part of the piece of the puzzle from on a year-to-year basis. And the other thing is as well too is they won't have the resources to spread themselves in Australia and Sebring at the same time. And they want to be able to devote that to each event individually. So that's really good. Yeah, as you said, it's extremely important, and potentially they know it's a secure event where international drivers want to come here each year.
Yeah, it's a very good thing. Incidentally, g'day Shane, how are you, Priesty? Good to hear from a member of the In-Pit Lane family. Good to catch up with you once again, and Gemini there. Can't wait for the island events. Yeah, it'll be great to be out and about again. As I said, I was talking to the people of the VHRR in terms of what we can do for the historics, but also we have spoken to Pyack. Well, Pyack have reached out to us about live streaming of Island Magic. Now I believe that as a result of the borders coming down again, that you will probably find that that will be Blendline will come down and be covering Island Magic now. So because the National Sports Sedan Championship is there, and I think that's part of their deal in terms of sponsorship and all that. That all of their rounds are going to be covered in terms of live streaming. So haven't heard anything for sure, but I'd be very surprised if that wasn't the case. Now Doc is running away and has left us with David Boone.
He's done a runner.
He's done a
You
runner.
could cover me. I'm doing the magic.
Yeah, so there you go, Jim. Island Magic, yes. So
how many cameras could we mount on one Excel?
On Hyundai. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. They'd all have to be facing forward, unfortunately.
No, some would be facing backwards, and to whichever side you're going to let everybody else pass on.
Doc's been inspired by his Boonie doll, and he's opening up another cold one. So
two. It does say beers plural, so I've got to have two on air tonight. And isn't it funny?
Somebody asked before, does the Boonie doll still talk?
Yes, he does. His batteries were removed a long time ago, and we were chatting that before we went on air. Maybe I should have just left the batteries in him and let him do the talking for us tonight. Isn't it funny, though, how you sometimes... I'm not going to say the particular company or show the label, but that's why I've been holding it backwards all night, but it does have a red neck. You get... In that particular one, you get the questions out of the bottom of the cap. It was...
It's make sugar in that town?
Pardon?
Don't they make sugar in that town?
Yeah. Isn't it funny though? It says this particular one. What team in the USA was Ben Simmons drafted to in the NBA, which happens to be a hot subject the last couple of days. I happen to get that out of the cap. Well, he's not showing up for training at the moment. He's getting fined. What is it? $400 and something thousand per game. He doesn't play. So and $2 million worth of fines he's already got as well too. So
serious money in that game, and he doesn't want to. He's having a bit of a sook at the moment because he doesn't want to play for that team apparently, and he's just he's turned up. He's contractually obliged to turn up, and that's all he's doing. He's turning up and going.
Well, they kicked him out of training yesterday.
Yeah,
he's not even turning up to that now. Congratulations to Josh Giddey, who is the youngest Australian who's ever played basketball at the NBA level for Australia over there in America. I can't remember the team he started off with today. It wasn't Minnesota, or he might have played against or something like that.
Milwaukee Mudhawks.
There you go. So Milwaukee. He had 10 rebounds, scored 4 points, and I think 3 assists as well, which is a record as well too in the NBA for someone in the position he was playing for. So he's had a stellar start to playing point guard for the Milwaukee team there. Congratulations to Josh Giddey today. There you go. We've covered just about every sport. Anyone else want to do lawn bowls tonight or something like that?
Yeah, don't get me started on David Warner and his place in the Australian T20 side. But anyway, let's move on to
Golden Duck.
another one. Next, let's talk about MotoGP coming up. Fabio Quartararo can wrap up the championship at the round in Italy over the weekend, but this will be a very, very emotional event because it will be the last time officially that the doctor will be in his home country as Valentino Rossi says goodbye to MotoGP at Misano. It'll be very, very emotional. I hope he goes really well there. But whatever crowd they allow into the place, if they allow a full house in, it'll be a sea of yellow, and you won't hear the bikes for the last couple of laps. All you'll hear, especially if he's doing well, all you'll hear is the roar of the crowd, over the top of the sound of the bikes, because everyone will be saying goodbye to Valentino. So that'll be fantastic. So that's coming up this weekend as well, and it's probably
can confirm, Brett. They are going to have a full capacity crowd, 100%. Yes.
Well, yeah, that'll be.
So good luck to Valentino. Doesn't matter where he finishes. I think doesn't matter who wins. It'll be parade laps forever for Valentino. So he's just he go down as the greatest rider we've ever seen in our lifetime, and probably for a long time to come. Because good luck to Quartararo. So he'll go all right. But he's a new benchmark. Let's see if Marc Marquez has a good off season. If he gets on the unmotorised bike, he stays in one piece, and also everyone else who rides them. As Brett says, they've all got a bloody, they've got a law unto themselves when they jump on those. Why do they have to ride those bloody bikes for training? Can't they get on an exercise bike? So, yeah, good luck to them all. And, yeah, it'll be great to see Marc Marquez and Quartararo go against each other and see who else can step up next year, like a Bagnaia or a Miller or someone else who's got a factory ride as well too. Morbidelli might be going all right next year too. He'll be on a current spec Yamaha too as well.
Yeah, and of course, also coming up this weekend, of course, the battle in Moto 2 will continue with between Fernandez and our own Remy Gardner. Gardner still leads, but he's crashed the last time around, has closed up that battle considerably. I think it's as little as 8 points or something now. So it's anyone to play for there. So that's going to go right through to the end of the year. Also, just quickly before we say goodbye, in terms of sports car racing, Sebastian Bourdais looks like being one of the drivers for Cadillac in their assault on both the IMSA Championship and the World Endurance Championship. He says he's not done with IndyCar racing, but at the moment he doesn't have a confirmed drive for next year. Speaking of someone who does have a confirmed drive is Christian Lundgaard. He the guy from Denmark, Formula 2 driver. He's going to be racing for Rahal Lederman. What's the other R? Whatever it's
Hunter Ray.
Yeah, Runnigan and Rahal Lederman.
Rahal, racing.
But David Lederman's team anyway. So he's going to be driving. He's going to be driving for them in IndyCar, and also the at the FIA World Motorsport Council, they made an agreement to extend the eligibility of the what was formerly the car known as the Rebellion, the Alpine, which raced at Le Mans this year and did quite well. They've now extended its homologation for at least one more year so that they can continue to race next year while they're getting ready to build their new car for 2024. So
speaking of not getting a drive, this is a chosen one. The fallout from the DPM, Lawson will not compete in it next year. He has said categorically, I am done with it and dusted. Yeah, that was controversial last week when we were chatting about it. So good on you, Mr. Lawson, young fella, 19-year-old, he's got a bright future.
It certainly looks like it. A helmet marker was, we know how important in that whole Red Bull situation, having the good grace of helmet marker is, and it certainly seems that helmet has an awful lot of time for Liam and the impressive way he handled that whole year. I mean, that was the first time he just stepped straight out of open wheel. It's his first time in GT cars and was in that sort of standard of competition and damn near won the thing as a result of it was really only the result of that bad bit of that aggressive piece of driving by Kelvin van der Linde that robbed him of that championship really. So good luck with Liam Lawson So anyway, I think that's about all the time we've got for. We've sort of killed the hour, so I think we've covered everything.
I have a question for everyone, just briefly, because obviously you said you touched on it on the show tonight. Favourite supercar livery, if we go around the room, doesn't matter what year, you can go back to the 70s to Tehran, or you can go to 2020. Favourite livery around the... Richard, you just gone and asked, you're going first.
Yes, the Pro Heart Commodore, which ran back in the Hang 500, I think it was, or 80s? Was it in the 80s?
Yep.
I've never found out what happened to the car. It ran that once. It only got minor damage. They fixed it, and it disappeared into somebody's collection somewhere.
Oh, there you go.
Well, there's one for V8 Sleuth.
I've been looking for it.
Sure, check that out. V8 Sleuth may well have it.
Mr. Peter,
of that.
Your favourite car livery? Doesn't matter what car, what livery.
I don't really have one.
Yeah, nothing in supercars. Okay, all right, nothing. Not a whole
It
deal.
has to be supercars, does it?
Oh yeah, well we can do another. We can do another category another week. Yeah, we'll just stick to supercars this week. Yes.
Well, touring cars. Touring
cars.
Okay.
You can go back as far, or Group C, Group A, Group B, or something like that.
Yes.
All the John Player specials in the Beamers. Yeah, there you go.
Beautiful.
That's good choice. Yep. Off your turn, Mr. Ritchie.
I think Alan Moffat's blue and white Mustang.
Ooh. Okay. Yeah.
It was only blue and white once, so that was in New Zealand. I mean, you talking about the Falcon?
Oh, okay.
You're talking about the Falcon, the XC, the Cobra?
No, he's talking about the Mustang he rang as well too, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Red?
that was
Blue and white would be the RX-7.
Yeah, the red one was the Mustang, wasn't it?
Well, the Mustang was red because that's probably my favourite livery. It wasn't a touring car when it ran it, but and I know that it upset a lot of people, but I really did like the Brute 33 livery on the Mustang. I thought that looked very classy. And there's a lookalike car sort of running in TCM at the moment, Touring Car Masters, and every time I see it, it brings back lots of great memories. And so it's a really nice, really classy livery, I think.
I'll go a family favourite that's been brought up a few times over the years, and it's been front of mine and a few people lately, only because obviously the revival of it. But I'm a Bartlett fan from the Channel 9 Camaro years ago when it was flying around, especially the Bath Tui's 1000 or the James Hardy 1000 it was known back then. That was an old favourite, probably a more modern version, only because he obviously was a lap of the gods, but. Murph's Kmart Commodore. I've got a lot of Fords that I've got time for them. XC is my favourite of all time with the Alan Moffat one too with Bondi, but that the Kmart Commodore was a great car as well too back in its day when it I think it was a first car that hit sub 206, or it was first car in the 206s I should say it was for a lap of Bathurst. There you go. Very good. I'll pick another one next week. And if anyone's
We've got a few. Yes,
Stuart.
Stuart,
Do you want my answer?
Yes, that's what I was about to go next. Stuart,
I've got two. One is the Perkins Castrol Commodore, which would be the VP or VS with the sort of starburst style livery down with the green and the white stripes. The smartest paint job.
VN and VP were the same one, or VR and VS were the same one.
Yep, and they actually they used that paint job once recently for a tribute for something. But the smartest paint job in all of supercar history is from Brad Jones Racing, but you need to view it while the car's upside down.
Yeah.
Do you have a still of that, Stuart?
I could probably find one.
Yeah, there you go.
That was speaking of Adelaide. That was at Adelaide on the infamous turn there. Turn 8 that went over and someone sort of said they might as well. So many of them are flipping over. They might as well put advertising on the bottom of the cars, and Brad did.
There were some big shunts back in the day, wasn't there? Sometimes I think I reckon probably the biggest roll was the Jason Richards roll coming down Conrod that many years ago. How many times did he turn that? That was a record number, wasn't it?
David Coulthard, wasn't it?
Was it Coulthard? Was it?
Yeah, David Coulthard.
Jason Richards.
Fabian Coulthard.
Fabian Coulthard. Yes, my God. Yeah, Fabian.
I think Jason rolled one too. I think, but not quite as many times.
Jason Richards. There's been plenty of really big really big losers down.
There's boom and fuel and bail up the farmers' fences.
I think probably the biggest modern day one, which destroyed the car and just about took every single piece of fiberglass and very thin sheet metal off it. And he only got away with, fortunately, a broken leg, but it kept him out for half a year, was the Chaz Mostert one there at a few years ago. It would have been about 2015, I think, when he broke his leg and just got a little, and only just takes one little mistake one time, and that it's amazing to see how a car can just go pinball from side to side and just basically
It was also a very lucky escape for some of the marshals there as well.
That car went over the top of them.
Yeah, that car was real. That was a really close call. That
and Chaz was lucky just with a broken leg, fortunately.
Yeah, Mad Cow Mark. Oh yes, there's another one. Mad Cow Mark, the Sid Chrome Mustang. That was another. Jim Richards' Sid Chrome Mustang was good, and also the Brian Thompson's Volkswagen Chev, really like that. And speaking of John Player, the John Player Special Corvair for Frank Gardner in sports sedans as well. Look, we could talk about it. See, I was saying how boring liveries were, and we spent 10 minutes boring you about them. So that's all we got time for. Before we talk about any more damn liveries, let's pull the plug on it now. As I said, next Thursday night on Channel 31, live and free to air right across Melbourne, we're going to be joined by our special guest Tom Sargent. And as I said, really good interview. Haven't cut it together yet, but you'll be really impressed. He impressed me. Very smooth young guy, and has his future sort of really well planned out. And obviously got a lot of talent as well, and he's sort of jumping into the whole Porsche thing, which is really the starting, really the level, the ladder to success in both supercars and beyond in GT racing as well. They've done a great job there at Porsche, so he's going to be doing that next year as well. So that's next week on the program, and of course, yes, as we can say, Mark, yes. How could we forget internationally golf?
We'll do some other categories next week. So have a beer and have a good week from Doc.
Yeah, that's it. Say good night. If you're in Melbourne, apparently we get out somewhere. I don't know where the hell we're going to. Nothing's open. Even if it was, I can't afford to go there. So
everyone's at Brett's place. Party time.
Yeah, be quick. It's not going to last long. Okay, we'll see you. We'll see you very, very soon. We'll see you next week. So until then, see you later. Bye for now.